Israel is keeping up its attacks on Hamas. And those airstrikes may also be sending a message to a bigger enemy, Iran.
And despite Hamas's massive rocket attacks on Israelis, they've been finding protection under the anti-missile system called Iron Dome. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Tel Aviv.
Israel entered the fourth day of its Operation Protective Edge by striking more Hamas targets within Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the operation to rid Hamas of its ability to fire rockets may take a long time. But some analysts believe Israel's military campaign also sends a signal to Iran. While Western leaders might be willing to tolerate a nuclear Iran, Israel knows Iran with nuclear weapons poses an existential threat to the Jewish state. The IDF's massive air campaign may be showing Iran it's capable of mounting the kind of large-scale air campaign necessary to destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure. But for now, Israelis have been running to bomb shelters throughout Israel, including Jerusalem.
Luckily, the IDF's Iron Dome intercepted the rockets en route and took out the threat.
This Iron Dome anti-missile battery just outside of Ashkelon and others throughout the country are Israel's first line of defense. Without the success of this joint U.S.-Israel project, it's likely dozens of rockets would have been falling on Israel's cities and towns. It makes Israelis feel safe.
It really changed the feeling of the citizen in Israel.
But inside Gaza, Hamas seems to be putting their own citizens into harm's way. They instructed their people to ignore IDF phone calls. The phone calls are Israel's way to protect the people of Gaza so they can get out of harm's way before a building is about to be targeted. Israel calls it the knock on the door. Ron Prosser, Israeli ambassador to the UN, explained the difference between Israeli actions and Hamas's tactics.
Israel is using precision strikes to avoid harming civilians. But Hamas is exploiting our concern for human life by hiding in Palestinian homes, schools and mosques, and using a Palestinian hospital as the headquarters.
Hamas also calls on Palestinians to gather on top of buildings about to be targeted, so Israel won't hit that target. This IDF video shows they didn't hit the building because of the people. So far, Hamas has fired nearly 600 rockets into Israel, and now millions more Israelis are in range than ever before. One way Israelis have begun dealing with the situation is by installing a free app on their smartphones called Red Alert. It tells in real time where a rocket is heading so they can get out of harm's way. And Christians around the world have begun using it, so when they hear sounds like this, or like this, they can pray for protection for those in harm's way and pray for the overall situation. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Tel Aviv.
That's an interesting app for all of us to get if you're interested in the peace of Jerusalem and praying when they're under attack. Wendy, you've been there. You know what it's like to hear that siren go off. Describe it for us.
Yeah, I was there in 2006, and your dad was there, and a bunch of us for the war on the border of Lebanon. And that is the eeriest sound that you can imagine. And you know you only have a minute or less, and it's sort of like Russian roulette. You know, you run for the nearest shelter or the nearest overhang or something that you can get under. And I just remember seeing this little Israeli boy, about 6 years old, just huddled. We were all huddled together under this shelter and just looking so afraid. And there's no words to describe it. Eerie.
Well, imagine, if you will, if you live in the United States and say on our border with Mexico or our border with Canada, we had cities under rocket fire. And it was constant. Imagine 600 rockets going into San Antonio. What would our response be? What would we do? And when you analyze it from that standpoint, you certainly see what the Israelis are trying to do. Well, in other news, the Christian mother who faced a death sentence for blasphemy is still not out of Sudan. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Gordon, just days after Miriam Ibrahim was released from a Sudanese prison, she and her family are still stuck in Sudan, trying desperately to get out and come to the United States. George Thomas has more on what's taking so long.
11 days after being freed from prison, why is Miriam Ibrahim, her husband and 2 children still stuck in a corner of the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum, Sudan? Tina Ramirez is with Hardwired, a group that has legal contacts with Ibrahim's case.
I think it's a good question that everybody's asking. The charges were dismissed. She was at the airport. She should have just been able to go.
On June 30th, the Christian mother was released after spending 8 months in a women's prison in Khartoum. She was sentenced to death and 100 lashes for marrying a Christian man. The court wanted her to convert to Islam. A day after her release, she and her family tried to leave for the United States, but were arrested at the airport, accused of using false papers to make the trip.
And so she was traveling outside the country on those documents, and the Sudanese government didn't recognize them. So they've charged her with falsifying documents.
The U.S. State Department says it's working to get her and her family out of the country.
We are engaging directly with Sudanese officials to secure their safe and swift departure from Sudan.
But in an earlier interview with CBN News, Ramirez said the State Department should have done more a lot sooner with this case.
Daniel had been petitioning for his wife to come here for the past 3 years since they were married, and a typical visa for a spouse will take about 6 to 9 months. So for this to have gone on for 3 years to the point where then her family was able to bring a case against her that put her in prison, it shows an extreme amount of negligence on the part of the American embassy in Khartoum.
During her imprisonment, the 27-year-old mother gave birth to a daughter while her legs were shackled.
Her doctors had advised the prison officials to let her go and deliver at the hospital, and they didn't allow her to. So she actually was chained in both legs and was not able to give birth in the normal manner.
For Ramirez and other human rights activists, this isn't just about rescuing Ibrahim. It's also about drawing attention to Sudan's harsh apostasy law.
There are other Christians that are being prosecuted under the apostasy law, which says that if you're a Muslim and you leave your faith, you become a Christian, then you can be put to death. And we want to change that law.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Here at home, a federal judge has ordered the IRS to explain under oath how it lost a huge amount of emails involving the Tea Party and other conservative groups. District Judge Emmett Sullivan wants an explanation in writing within a month. He's also appointing a federal magistrate to see if the lost emails can be recovered from other sources. The IRS blames the loss on a computer crash belonging to Lois Lerner. She's a key figure in the targeting scandal, and critics have been skeptical about the disappearance of important information in the investigation. Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson says the agency responsible for removing illegal immigrants could run out of money by mid-August. He's pushing Congress to approve President Obama's emergency funding request for nearly $4 billion to help deal with a flood of unaccompanied minors illegally crossing the border. The White House says roughly half of the money would be used to care for the minors, and most of the remaining money is for beefing up border security. But Republicans remain unconvinced.
I personally have no confidence that pouring billions of dollars into our current immigration system will solve the crisis. I think we have to get serious about enforcing our current laws and protecting our border if we're ever to get different results.
Republicans want a quicker deportation process for the children. Well, this Sunday, soccer fans around the world will be glued to their TVs when Germany and Argentina battle it out in the World Cup finals. Throughout the tournament, though, Christians have been spreading a message of God's love, including one U.S. women's soccer team that came to the Brazilian town of Natal to put on a show of their own. Heather Sells has that story.
The Lady Bison team from Oklahoma Baptist University arrived in Natal for a series of friendly matches with local Brazilian teams. They also held training camps for younger players. They came with a unique tool for sharing God's love, a brightly colored soccer ball.
It's kind of like the bracelets, and with all the different colors, how the black represents the sin, and how the red, it represents the blood of Jesus Christ when he came and died for us. And we explain to them that he's the Son of God, and that we believe in our hearts that he is the Savior.
During their brief stay in northern Brazil, the team reported that 18 people accepted Christ, and 22 others showed an interest in hosting home Bible studies. Thousands of Baptist churches participated in outreach events during the Cup. They even used a small drone, wireless hotspots, and free microchips for cell phones to share Christian videos and messages with those attending the games. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Sharing the good news. Well, could you give up Facebook for 99 days? A nonprofit group in the Netherlands called Just is asking Facebook users to do just that. The group made its move after word got out about a controversial Facebook experiment where it made changes in some users' news feeds to see how it would affect their mood. So the Dutch group decided to do an experiment of its own to see how people would feel after being off of Facebook for 99 days. The people at Just say it's not a protest, but they think there can be emotional benefits to using it in moderation. Gordon, I gave up Facebook for Lent this year. That was just 40 days, but I think I could have gone 99. What about you?
Well, I just got back from being on assignment for 18 days and gave it up for that period of time. And frankly, I didn't miss it. How about you?
You didn't miss it? I went on vacation about a week ago, and I gave it up for about 2 days, then I couldn't resist. I had to get back on and see what was going on. But, you know, I love it when you have a prayer need and you can put it out on Facebook and you've got over 1,000 friends and there's, you know, at least half of them are praying for you. I love that use of Facebook for prayer and just...
What do you think about Facebook performing social experiments on users to determine their emotional...
Well, you know, how do they even find out what your mood is? I don't know how that works, but I think it's
What's your behavioral response? What, are you more likely to post a positive or negative message after receiving positive or negative news feeds?
Got it. Well, I can understand why they want to do it, but I think it's still a little bit creepy.
Human experimentation on Facebook. Let's all go on a 99-day fast. All right.
Former Kentucky bank teller is suing her employer for allegedly firing her for saying, "Have a blessed day." Polly Neese worked for U.S. Bank in Walton, Kentucky for more than 20 years. For 2 years, she told customers to have a blessed day. In 2011, the bank told her she could no longer say the phrase, and she was later fired. She's now suing the bank for firing her because of her religious beliefs. U.S. Bank disputes that claim. It says some customers had complained about Neese's greeting and that after repeated warnings, she continued to say it. Operation Blessing is providing aid for Syrian refugees in Bulgaria. Many refugees fleeing the brutal warfare in Syria are looking for shelter across the border in countries like Bulgaria. The Bulgarian government has prepared makeshift camps where families must sleep on floor mats in crowded rooms. Operation Blessing is working with several organizations, providing beds, clothing, and other necessities. One camp already has individual rooms for families, cooking facilities, washrooms, and even classrooms for the children. And more camps are being added to prevent overcrowding. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org.